It sounds like the monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good.
The palace doors swung open and the entire crowd stopped breathing. No smile. No hesitation. Prince William stepped forward with the cold authority of a man no longer waiting for permission to rule. Behind him, whispers raced through the hall as Queen Camilla's family stood frozen, their expressions shifting from confidence to disbelief in seconds. Cameras flashed wildly, but William never looked away. Was this the moment the monarchy quietly drew a new line in history? And now we want to hear from you. Do you think William's first appearance as king was a message to the entire royal family? Yes or no? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy powerful royal stories filled with hidden tension and shocking moments, make sure you subscribe. The turning point at Buckingham Palace, the appearance that changed everything. Prince William appeared unlike anything the royal household had ever witnessed before. Seen away from formal stiffness, the future king seemed almost ordinary, sharing jokes, sipping cider, and even riding a scooter with an ease few expected from him. Yet, when duty called at Buckingham Palace, that ease shifted into precision as he stepped forward, ignored waiting photographers, and moved directly into position without hesitation. Inside the palace corridors, longtime courtiers described the atmosphere as controlled, sharp, and unmistakably deliberate, as though every movement had already been calculated. One senior insider later remarked that the room instantly understood this was not a continuation of King Charles's reign, but a quiet reset in direction. On the other side of the gathering, the Parker Bowles family, Tom, Laura, and the younger grandchildren, watched in silence as uncertainty settled over familiar privileges. The warmth once extended by Charles now felt fragile, as access and invitations could no longer be assumed under William's firmer approach. Observers summarized the moment in a single word: speechless, not as dramatic shock, but as the quiet realization that the ground beneath them had shifted. It was not spoken aloud, yet everyone present sensed the shift in power, as if Buckingham Palace itself had quietly reoriented around a new center of gravity. Even the carefully maintained balance between tradition and transition seemed to tilt, leaving questions hanging over what the next era under William would truly look like. For those watching closely, every gesture carried meaning, from the absence of ceremonial pause to the unspoken distance maintained from familiar faces at the event. Nothing about the moment felt accidental. Even his relaxed demeanor earlier in the day contrasted sharply with the firm control he displayed within palace walls. By the time the gathering ended, what remained was not confusion, but clarity about direction, as everyone present understood that influence within the palace was entering a new phase defined by restraint, calculation, and unmistakable authority, with silence replacing speculation across every corner of Buckingham Palace, leaving no doubt about what had just begun behind closed doors. Now, the Parker Bowles family suddenly realized how fragile their position truly was after William's first appearance as monarch left them in silent shock. But what changed in that moment? And how did Camilla's quiet influence over years begin to unravel the privileges once taken for granted within the Windsor Circle? Let's find out. The silence after the passing crown. The Parker Bowles family realizes what they've lost. In seconds after William walked past them during his first public appearance as monarch, a quiet shock settled over the room. Everything they once enjoyed under King Charles had never been guaranteed by tradition, but granted only by his personal choice. For years, Camilla quietly shaped her family's place inside the Windsor Circle, opening doors for Tom, Laura, and even the grandchildren at private royal gatherings. Tom, a respected food writer, had appeared at official events, while Laura was sometimes seen at private royal meetings, giving the family rare informal access. For months, a senior royal source warned that when Catherine becomes queen, Camilla would effectively be at her mercy, a claim once dismissed as gossip. People close to Camilla say she was deeply unsettled when King Charles agreed to hand William greater authority, a move that left her devastated and unprepared. When William walked past without acknowledging them, the silence that followed was quickly replaced by calculation as they began reassessing every remaining connection they had. Within hours, private calls were made, urgent conversations followed, and a quiet panic spread as they tried to understand what still remained within reach. By the time William completed his first address, the family realized that under his reign, they were no longer central figures, but fading footnotes in a changing royal order. No clear path remained to restore what had been lost, and every assumption built over decades now seemed fragile and uncertain in the new reality. Camilla, once seen as the quiet architect of access, was left confronting how quickly influence could dissolve when the center of power shifted unexpectedly. Weeks earlier, even the most loyal voices in palace circles had hinted at this change, but few believed it would arrive so abruptly or so visibly. Now, every invitation, photograph, and meeting depended entirely on William's discretion, reshaping long-standing relationships in ways no one inside the family could ignore. What had once felt permanent had turned into uncertainty, and the silence left behind carried more weight than any spoken words. Now, the announcement of King Charles's cancer diagnosis in early 2024 quietly shifted the balance of power within Buckingham Palace, placing Prince William at the center of growing responsibility. But how did this sudden change reshape the monarchy's inner structure? And what truly unfolded as William began stepping into roles his father could no longer carry? Let's reveal the shocking details. The king who was already crowned. The palace never truly waited for a coronation to begin its next chapter. In early 2024, Buckingham Palace announced that King Charles had been diagnosed with cancer, a revelation that quietly shifted the balance of duty inside the monarchy. From that point, Prince William began taking on responsibilities with calm consistency, stepping into engagements his father could no longer manage and shaping decisions that slowly defined him as the institution's acting force. He was not learning the role when he eventually appeared as king. Many inside the palace already saw him living it long before the public did. This quiet transition, described by insiders as carefully prepared over months, made his first appearance carry the weight of confirmation rather than surprise. While this shift unfolded, Queen Camilla maintained a strong presence in royal duties, having long built her own influence and networks within palace life. However, her position became increasingly complicated as internal differences grew between those who supported William's modern approach and those loyal to Charles's traditional decisions. One of the most difficult moments reportedly came during discussions around Prince Andrew's residence at Royal Lodge, where William and Catherine pushed for his removal. This move reportedly left Camilla feeling excluded, with insiders saying she believed key decisions were being made without her involvement or consent. At the same time, disagreements surfaced over how the York family should be managed publicly, with William preferring distance while Charles himself favored a more open approach aimed at public healing. Behind closed doors, these disagreements created a sense of quiet strain as Camilla often found herself aligned with Charles but out of step with William and Catherine's growing influence. By the time William stepped forward in his first appearance as king, the atmosphere inside the palace felt less like a ceremonial change and more like the final acknowledgement of a role he had already been performing for a long time. Observers noted that this moment carried a heavy silence from Camilla's circle, with her family reportedly watching without comment as the shift in power became impossible to ignore. Long before the public fully understood what was unfolding, the monarchy had already adjusted its center of gravity around William, whose steady assumption of responsibility left little room for uncertainty. This gradual transfer of authority, shaped by illness, timing, and careful planning, also deepened private frustrations within the royal household, especially for Camilla, who found her influence increasingly challenged. What seemed like a transition was confirmation of power already settled, leaving old alliances strained and new authority firmly in place under William's quiet but undeniable reign as the institution moved forward without hesitation and doubt faded.